we're going to be working with writing proportions. And to start out with, we'll go ahead and work with a table. We're not always going to use a table, but that's kind of what we'll begin with. You can either use the columns of our table that we have there to write proportions, or you can set it up using the rows. So here, just looking at our table and understanding what it has, it says last month we purchased 2 ringtones and our total cost was $6. And then this month we bought 3 ringtones, and how much money is that going to cost us? So I'm starting out with a really easy proportion just to help you understand and make it easy for you to understand how we actually go through and configure this off of a more complex proportion. So if I were to use the columns, so columns would be your top and bottom. So like here, I went ahead and set up in column format. So you'll notice that that matches this fraction. I've got 2 ringtones with $6. And then I went ahead and just set up my other column as my second fraction of 3 ringtones over X dollars. Okay, so that's setting it up in proportions. If I were to go through and want to solve this, I know some of you could mentally do this because you've already figured it out. But like I said, I chose to do this so that it was something easy that you could kind of check yourself on. In using a proportion, we're going to have to start using those cross products. So if we do a cross product, we're going to go ahead and take 6 times 3. And then that's where we have 2 numbers diagonal. And then we're going to divide by the third number, or cross multiply divide. Up in your upper levels, they call it cross multiply and solve, because when we get into our next lesson, we're going to actually be solving some of these that are involving algebra. So here, if I were to set this up, I would cross multiply, I would do 6 times 3, and then I would divide by 2, or solve by dividing by 2. So 6 times 3 would give me 18, divided by 2 gives me 9. So it's going to cost me $9 for those 3 ringtones. And I know a lot of you had probably already in your head said, well, it's $3 per ringtone, and if I buy 3, that's going to be $9. And that's okay. But unfortunately, mental math for proportions isn't always going to be easy to do. Because sometimes, like I said, we're going to have some algebraic ones, so you have to understand the steps. So here's another way that you could set it up, is some kids will look at it and say, well, I'm going to do my ringtones in one proportion and my dollars in the other, because they read it like this. They say, well, 2 ringtones equals $6. So 3 ringtones would have to equal how many dollars? Same thing. You'll notice that I'm going to cross multiply 3 times 6. And then I'm going to divide by that third number of 2. 3 times 6 is 18, divided by 2 still gives me the $9. The key thing when working proportions is that you are matching labels in some sort. You're either matching labels, like here, we matched labels in the same fraction or proportion part. In our other one, we matched labels on the levels. So let me pull that one back out so that you can compare these two. Here we matched labels going on the level. So like my top was my ringtones and the bottom was my dollars. Okay, so it depends how you prefer, and it doesn't matter, your preference, just make sure that you're matching those up. Okay, so we're question. So this is a real world scenario. This happens all the time as you guys are working in family consumer sciences and you're maybe baking. You might want to increase a recipe or decrease a recipe just based on what you need. So here's our recipe. We have black bean soup, and that black bean soup requires 1.5 cups of black beans, a half cup of salsa, 2 cups of water, 1 tomato, and 2 teaspoons of seasoning. So it says a chef increases the amount of ingredients in a recipe to make a proportional recipe. The new recipe has 6 cups of black beans. Write a proportion that gives the number X of tomatoes in the new recipe. So we're going to set this up as our original recipe, and we're working with black beans and tomatoes in this scenario. So our black beans originally in the original recipe was 1.5 cups. And our tomatoes was, we needed 1 tomato. Okay, so our new recipe, he wants to make a recipe that requires 6 cups of black beans. So my black beans was my top number, so I'm going to put 6 cups here. And now I need to solve for this. So I'm going to, if I look at it as fractions, I'm going to cross multiply, divide, or solve. So if I cross multiply, 1 times 6 is 6 divided by 1.5 gives me 4. So I am going to need 4 tomatoes for this. Okay, so let's go ahead and try another one. We'll use the same recipe yet. So let's say instead of the amount of tomatoes I needed, I wanted to work off of the amount of water. So we'll use the same scenario in terms of we're still going to increase it to 6 cups of black beans. So write a proportion that gives the amount of water that you would need in the new recipe. So this time I need to pull my information for the water. So we're still using black beans, and our water was 2 cups. So the original recipe is 1.5 cups of black beans. And for my water, I needed 2 cups. Okay, in our new recipe, once again, we're gonna say that we're gonna use 6 cups of black beans. So black beans was on the top, so I'm gonna put that on the top. And now I need to solve for this missing part. So we're gonna cross multiply, divide, so 6 times 2 is 12. So 12 divided by 1.5 gives us 8. So I just found out that I need 8 cups of water. Okay, so that's using ratios and proportions in a real world